The sun set gently over Monroe, Ohio, casting long shadows across the modest three-bedroom house that would soon become infamous. The air was thick with the scent of lilacs, their sweet fragrance a cruel contrast to the impending horror. Inside, laughter echoed softly as the Derman family gathered, unaware of the darkness lurking within the patriarch's heart. Chad Derman, a 32-year-old father, seemed an ordinary man, but beneath his calm exterior lay a malevolent intent that would shatter his community. As dusk enveloped the town, the innocence of childhood met its end in a scene of unspeakable tragedy. The sun slipped beneath the horizon of Monroe, Ohio, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, as if nature itself held its breath in anticipation of the nightmare that was about to unfold. The town, a quiet enclave nestled along the Ohio River, was a place where everyone knew each other and the troubles of the world seemed far away. The Derman family, like many others, had settled into what seemed like an idyllic life in this quaint town, where every street corner whispered stories of yesteryear, and every breeze carried the scent of blooming lilacs. Inside their modest home, the echoes of laughter filled the air. The Derman household, with its 3 bedrooms and a cozy back porch, was alive with the sounds of childhood joy. Hunter, Clayton, and Chase, the center of the family's universe, were bundles of energy and innocence. Their laughter was a melody that danced through the house, a testament to the love that should have protected them. Their mother, Laura, cherished these moments, her heart swelling with warmth as she watched her boys play. Chad Derman, a 32-year-old father, appeared to be the anchor of this familial bliss. His demeanor was unremarkable, the kind of man you'd pass on the street without a second thought. Yet, beneath the surface of his ordinary life, something sinister brewed. The shadows that stretched across the Derman residence that evening were not just of the setting sun, but of a darkness that had begun its silent descent months before. As the twilight deepened, Chad returned home earlier than usual, a decision that seemed innocuous at the time. He wore the weary look of a man who had spent the day under the weight of the world's responsibilities. Yet, there was an edge to his presence that evening, an unsettling aura that only he knew the cause of. He gathered his family in the bedroom, a ritual that had become a semblance of comfort in their home. Laura, unaware of the storm about to be unleashed, welcomed the rare opportunity for closeness. They talked, the room filled with the easy chatter of those who believe there is always a tomorrow. The children's laughter was a balm, a temporary respite from whatever worries lingered in Chad's mind. But even amidst the warmth of familial love, Chad's mind was a tumult of cold calculations. Without warning, the atmosphere shifted. Chad rose, his movements deliberate and detached, a puppet guided by unseen strings. He crossed the room to the gun safe, a steel sentinel that stood by the bed. The metallic click of the lock echoed, a gunshot of its own kind, shattering the illusion of safety. The Marlin Model HC-22 rifle emerged from its confines, a harbinger of the unspeakable acts to follow. In those moments, time seemed to splinter. The world outside continued its tranquil existence, unaware of the horror unfolding within the walls of the Derman home. But inside, the air grew thick with fear and confusion. Alexis, the teenage stepdaughter, was the first to sense the seismic shift. Her attention snapped from the television to the bedroom, where the first shot pierced the night's veil. Panic gripped her heart as she witnessed the incomprehensible, a father's hand turned against his child. Hunter, only 4 years old, fell victim to a nightmare that should never have been. Alexis ran, terror propelling her forward, desperate to escape the madness that had engulfed her family. Laura, her instincts as a mother ignited, shouted for the other children to flee, her voice a beacon of hope amidst the chaos. Outside, the world remained blissfully ignorant of the tragedy that had stained this quiet town. But for the Dermans, the night had become an endless descent into horror. As Chad followed his 7-year-old son Clayton into the field, Alexis's terrified pleas filled the air, the agony of a shattered family echoing through the night. As the courtroom proceedings unfolded against the backdrop of a small town still grappling with the gravity of Chad Dorman's actions, the atmosphere was tense, almost suffocating. The air was thick with a blend of anticipation and dread, the kind that clung to the skin like invisible smoke, curling into every crevice of the old courthouse. Outside, a gray sky hung low, mirroring the somber faces of those gathered. The courthouse stood as a silent sentinel amidst the slow rustle of leaves and the gentle breeze, its steps worn by time and countless footsteps of the accused, the wronged, and those desperate for justice. Inside, the atmosphere was electric with the murmurs of onlookers, reporters, and the families torn apart by tragedy. The wooden pews creaked under the weight of those who bore witness to the unraveling of a life once thought ordinary. In the front row, the remaining members of the Dorman family sat huddled together, their eyes reflecting a storm of emotions, grief, disbelief, and a quiet, simmering anger. As Deputy Chad Poffman took the stand, his testimony introduced an acute tension into the room. His voice, steady yet marked by a hint of something unspoken, painted a vivid picture of the nightmarish scene he had encountered. He described Chad sitting on the porch, cradling the rifle as if it were an extension of himself, a chilling tableau framed by the eerie stillness of the night. The courtroom seemed to contract with each word, the air growing denser, almost tangible in its weight. Detective Michael Ross followed with his own account, a narrative that wove through the labyrinth of Chad's psyche. His recollection of Chad's biblical reference during the interrogation added a layer of surrealism to the already grim proceedings. It was a moment that clawed at the edges of reason, leaving a lingering sense of unease in its wake. The words hung in the air, unsettling as the implications they carried. The audience shifted in their seats, a collective ripple of discomfort coursing through the room. In those few seconds, everyone was bound by the macabre mystery of Chad's motives, a riddle wrapped in layers of darkness, shrouded by the enigma of a father's betrayal. As the judge's gavel marked the end of the hearing, the courtroom exhaled a collective breath. Yet, the tension did not dissipate. It lingered, a specter that would haunt the corridors long after the day's proceedings had concluded. Outside the courthouse, the afternoon sky had deepened into a bruised blue, the sun casting long shadows that stretched across the pavement. The community, a tapestry of interconnected lives, was left to grapple with the aftermath, questions unanswered, justice still out of reach. In the weeks following, the town became a living testament to resilience mingled with sorrow. Candles flickered in windows as night fell, each flame a silent vigil for the boys lost, a beacon against the encroaching darkness. Memorials sprang up, vibrant with color and life, a stark contrast to the muted tones of grief. Balloons in primary colors, red, blue, yellow, danced in the wind, each tethered to memories of joy and innocence. The community's unity was palpable, a testament to the indomitable spirit of those seeking solace amidst the ruins of shattered lives. The trial, set to resume in the dog days of summer, loomed large in the collective consciousness. With each passing day, the weight of expectation grew heavier, the hope for justice a flickering flame in the heart of a town yearning for closure. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the land in a gentle twilight, the courthouse stood silent once more. It would wait, as it always had, for the stories yet to be told and the truths yet to be revealed, a steadfast witness to the unfolding drama of human frailty and strength. The air inside the police station seemed colder than it should have been, a chill that seeped into the bones of those present. The fluorescent lights cast a sterile glow, reflecting off the polished surfaces of the interrogation room. The tension was palpable, a silent hum in the static-laden air. Faint echoes of officers going about their duties drifted in through the slightly ajar door, their voices a muted backdrop to the unfolding drama. Melissa Huckabee sat hunched in a metal chair, her hands clasped tightly together on the tabletop. Her face, framed by disheveled hair, bore the strain of recent events, her eyes hollow and bruised with exhaustion. The detectives, seasoned in the art of detection, watched her with unwavering focus, their expressions impassive yet determined. The room's atmosphere was thick with anticipation, a prelude to the inevitable confrontation of truth and deceit. As Detective Ramirez leaned forward, his voice was calm, almost gentle, yet it carried the weight of the evidence accumulated against her. "Melissa," he began, his words deliberate, "we've gone through all the files, the notes, the testimonies. We've pieced together a timeline that places you at the scene." He paused, letting the statement hang in the air like a guillotine. Melissa's fingers twitched slightly, a small gesture that betrayed the storm brewing beneath her composed exterior. Her gaze flickered to the detective, then back to the table, as if seeking refuge in its mundane surface. The room seemed to hold its breath, waiting for her to speak, to break the unbearable silence. "Why would I do that?" she finally whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the overhead lights. It was a plea, a question laced with desperation and denial. Her eyes darted nervously, searching for a lifeline amid the sea of incriminating evidence. Detective Ramirez gestured to a manila folder lying open in front of him, its contents neatly organized yet damning. "We have a note, Melissa. The handwriting matches yours. We found a suitcase, the one you reported stolen, and the substances, the drugs, consistent with what was found in Sandra's system." Each word was a hammer blow, landing with precision, leaving no room for escape. Melissa's breath caught in her throat, a small gasp that escaped her lips before she could contain it. The reality of her situation was an oppressive weight, pressing down on her with relentless force. The room seemed to close in around her, the walls a cage from which there was no escape. She could feel the judgment in their eyes, the certainty that had eluded her until now. Her mind raced, grasping for explanations, justifications that could somehow align with the monstrous truth she had tried to bury. Detective Ramirez leaned back, giving her space to process the enormity of what lay before her. "We want to understand," he said, his tone softer now, a hint of empathy threading through the steel. "But we need you to be honest with us, for Sandra, for her family." The mention of Sandra's name was a knife twist, and Melissa flinched as if struck. Her shoulders slumped, a visible collapse of defenses, as the reality of the little girl's fate settled over her like a shroud. The silence stretched taut, a fragile thread holding the weight of their collective breath. Outside, the evening had fallen into a hush, the world beyond the station unaware of the drama playing out within its walls. The community, still reeling from the loss, was bathed in the soft glow of streetlights, a town caught in the reluctant embrace of night. Inside, Melissa's resolve crumbled further, her eyes filling with tears that she blinked away with practiced ease. The facade was cracking, the truth clawing its way to the surface with an inevitability that was both terrifying and liberating. "I didn't mean," she started, her voice a thin thread of sound, but the words failed her, dissolving into the charged air. She covered her face with trembling hands, a gesture of surrender to the inexorable tide of truth that had finally caught up with her. Detective Ramirez watched, his expression a mix of relief and sorrow. The path to justice was never easy, marked by suffering and uncertainty. Yet in this moment, as the truth began to unfurl, there was a glimmer of hope for closure, for healing, in a community long scarred by a senseless act of violence. Trembling slightly as she attempted to conceal the urgency that her training demanded she keep under wraps. On the other end of the line, Jonathan's breaths were shallow, punctuated by the raw, ragged edges of pain. Each intake of air rattled in his throat like a desperate plea for life, and the dispatcher could almost hear his heart thundering against his chest, a relentless percussion of fear and hope entangled in their final dance. The scene at the residence was one that would haunt first responders for years to come, a tableau of chaos and tragedy painted in the hues of a quiet suburban neighborhood where such darkness rarely dared to tread. Whitehall Road lay silent, its freshly washed pavements gleaming under the fading sun, oblivious to the horror unfolding within its bounds. The air was thick with the scent of blooming lilacs, their sweetness clinging obstinately to the tragedy like a delicate shroud. As the paramedics rushed inside, the soft patter of their footsteps was swallowed by the house's oppressive silence. The hallway seemed to stretch indefinitely, a tunnel leading into the unknown, where time had thinned to a trickle, and each second oozed by with agonizing slowness. The only sound that broke the silence was the faint trickling of a leaky faucet, its rhythm unervingly steady amidst the chaos. In the living room, they found Jonathan crumpled on the floor, his body contorted in a feeble attempt to shield himself from his grim fate. His skin was ghostly pale, a stark contrast to the vibrant life that had once pulsed beneath it. The coppery tang of blood hung heavy in the air, mingling with the scent of overturned earth from a nearby potted plant that had fallen in the commotion. The vivid red of his lifeblood marred the carpet, a cruel testament to the violence that had erupted in this once peaceful home. Jonathan's eyes, wide and glistening with tears, met those of the paramedics with a quiet plea that transcended words. In that moment, the room seemed to expand and contract with each of his labored breaths, the weight of impending loss pressing down on everyone present. The paramedics moved quickly, their hands a blur of practiced efficiency as they worked to stabilize him, their voices a low hum of reassurance and urgency. But beneath the surface of their professionalism lay an undercurrent of disbelief. How could this have happened? How could a grandmother, the very epitome of warmth and safety, become the harbinger of such unfathomable betrayal? The questions swirled like a maelstrom in their minds, relentless and unanswerable, as they fought to stave off the inevitable. As Jonathan was whisked away to the hospital, the house was left in silence once more, a mausoleum of secrets and shattered trust. The light filtered through the windows, casting long shadows that crept across the floor like the specters of forgotten promises. It was hard to imagine that this space, once filled with laughter and familial love, now echoed with the silent screams of a bond irrevocably broken. In the aftermath of the tragedy, whispers of the past began to surface, painting a complex tapestry of a family torn apart by unseen battles and unheard cries for help. The community, grappling with the horror of the event, found themselves reflecting on the secrets that lay hidden behind closed doors, on the facades of normalcy that masked the true stories within. It was a chilling reminder of the fragility of life and the hidden depths of human desperation. As dusk settled over the neighborhood, the world continued to turn, indifferent to the pain that had taken root in its midst. The lilacs in the garden continued to bloom, their petals unfurling in a gentle dance of resilience and renewal, a testament to the cycles of life and death that intertwined in the fabric of existence. And in the heart of that quiet suburb, where the sacred bond of family had been shattered, a community mourned the loss of innocence, clinging to the hope that healing, though distant, was still possible. The early evening air was thick with tension, a palpable sense of foreboding that seemed to seep from the grim walls of the courtroom itself. Sandra Lane, the frail septuagenarian, sat alone at the defendant's table, her face a composed mask, eyes flickering with an inscrutable light. The whispers in the gallery were a low hum of anticipation, a stark contrast to the solemn silence that had enveloped the room moments before. Outside, the setting sun cast long shadows across the courthouse steps, a stark metaphor for the darkness that had descended upon the small community of West Bloomfield. The arrest had been swift, playing out like a chilling scene from a nightmare. Officers had arrived at the house on Sandra Lane, the tranquility of the suburban street shattered by the echoes of gunfire. Their approach was cautious, hearts pounding against the bulletproof vests that were now a second skin. Each step closer to the house was a step deeper into the unknown. The door creaked ominously as they entered, the acrid scent of gunpowder hanging in the air, mingling with the metallic tang of blood. There stood Sandra diminutive with a Glock at her feet. Her confession was simple, stark: "I murder my grandson," delivered without a trace of emotion. The words chilled the officers to their core. The pursuit of justice for Jonathan Hoffman, a promising young man robbed of his future, became the crucible in which the truth would be forged. Detectives pieced together a mosaic of evidence, each fragment a glimpse into the chaos of that fateful day. Blood-spattered walls bore silent witness to the violence, a grim tableau etched in drying crimson. Bullet casings scattered like dark seeds across the floor, each a testament to the desperate final moments of a life cut tragically short. As the investigation deepened, layers of complexity unfolded. Friends and family painted Sandra as a beloved matriarch, a pillar of her community who volunteered at the synagogue and showered her grandchildren with love. Yet, beneath that benign exterior lurked shadows of control and manipulation, whispered secrets of a past that refused to stay buried. Jennifer, Jonathan's mother, offered a starkly different narrative, one of a childhood marred by tyranny and emotional upheaval, of a family haunted by the specter of dysfunction. The trial unfolded under the unforgiving gaze of the public, the courtroom a theater of human tragedy where every word, every gesture, was scrutinized by the media. Sandra's defense portrayed her as a victim of circumstance, driven to violence by fear and desperation. Her own testimony was a fragile tapestry of contradictions, woven with threads of regret and defiance. The prosecution, however, was relentless, dissecting her claims of self-defense with surgical precision. They presented the 911 call, a haunting symphony of silence and gunshots, the gaps between shots a silent indictment of her actions. With each piece of evidence, the narrative shifted like sand beneath the jury's feet. Forensic experts drove the nails of certainty into the coffin of her alibi, revealing that Jonathan's toxicology report did not support the claims of a drug-fueled rampage. Instead, it painted a picture of a young man, flawed but undeserving of such a brutal end. The verdict, when it came, was a denouement of collective breath-holding. Guilty of second-degree murder. As the sentence was pronounced, a murmur of dismay rippled through the courtroom. Sandra Lane, who had once been the keeper of bedtime stories and tender kisses, now faced 2 decades behind bars, a grandmother turned pariah. Outside, the sky had darkened, a heavy blanket of nightfall pressing down. The community grappled with the duality of their emotions. Torn between sympathy for a woman they thought they knew and justice for a life extinguished too soon. The echoes of the trial lingered like ghosts, a reminder of the thin veneer of civility that can shatter under the weight of human frailty. The story of Sandra and Jonathan was not just a cautionary tale of violence, but a haunting exploration of the depths of human despair. In the quiet corners of West Bloomfield, the lilacs continued their eternal bloom, their resilience a poignant reminder of life in the shadow of death. The gavel's echo marked the finality of justice, a chilling reminder that even the familiar warmth of a grandmother's embrace could conceal chilling shadows. The courtroom, a theater of human folly, murmured with the weight of truth unveiled. Outside, the scent of damp earth mingled with the whispers of resolved ghosts, a testament that time's relentless march eventually catches all who falter in its moral gaze.